So let's talk about the early stage of dating a dismissive avoidant attachment style, specifically the first few months, where maybe you're not already in a monogamous relationship or committed to some sort of relationship with this individual. What are the do's and don'ts? What are the important things to keep track of? Well, in today's video, we are going to break down the must-knows, specifically 5 huge must-knows when it comes to dating the dismissive avoidant. So first and foremost, I think it's really important to understand that there are 4 pillars of connection in every relationship. We have the romantic pillar of connection, and this is obviously like doing romantic things, romantic gestures, buying flowers, writing loving notes. A lot of words of affirmation related things can fall under the romantic, but it's also establishing like chemistry, connection, a spark, right? That you don't necessarily have in a friendship. So in our relationships, romantic relationships, we have a romantic pillar of connection. The second pillar is we have an emotional connection pillar. This is our ability to be vulnerable, to share our needs, to share our truth and our inner world with somebody, and to learn about somebody else's inner world and understand those very same things. And in time, learn to consider those things in how we build a relationship with somebody else. For example, if I know that somebody in a relationship needs reassurance from time to time, I would emotionally consider that when I'm making decisions in terms of how I show up. Then we have our physical aspect of a relationship. This involves sex, intimacy, but it also involves things like physical proximity to somebody, how much you allow them into your physical space, and it includes things like physical affection. Last but not least, we have this 4th pillar. And trust me, this will all come back into the 5 major things you need to know in dating a dismissive avoidant. But then we also have the intellectual pillar of relationships, of connection. And the intellectual pillar is your ability to share your ideas, to share things that you're learning, to talk about facts and interesting topics, to share your opinions, your viewpoints, your philosophies on things. So all of these pillars actually go into a relationship together. Now, something that's really interesting is that one thing that probably nobody really talks about is that when dismissive avoidants tend to vet somebody in terms of getting to know them and establishing a relationship with them, they generally want to see that they can establish an intellectual pillar of connection prior to really establishing some of the other pillars, like that emotional pillar of connection. In fact, you could go so far as to say a dismissive avoidant needs to establish some degree of intellectual connection before feeling safe to establish emotional connection. It almost needs to feel like it's worthwhile to them. Now, dismissive avoidants also tend to connect most easily in the intellectual pillar. I mean, if you've ever seen a dismissive avoidant in action, out in the wild, you've probably seen that they can talk about facts for days. In fact, they can establish entire friendships and relationships for decades that are basically just based on the intellectual pillar of connection. And they don't even share internal facts about their lives with each other. And so this pillar of connection is meaningful to a dismissive avoidant, and it's essentially a prerequisite, which means if you're in a position where you're getting to know somebody, you have to make sure that you're not just shoving the emotional pillar of connection down, but you're actually making space for all 4 pillars. And generally, it's like a little bit of intellectual connection, then can lead to more emotional connection. And then this brings me to our second must know, which is that you don't want to move too fast intimacy-wise with a dismissive avoidant. They tend to see that as not really a sign of safety and of reliability in a sense. And again, like that's up to each person's discretion to what feels comfortable for them. This isn't me telling you you have to behave in a certain way or do things in a specific order, but like if you're looking for how do we really build rapport with this person, it's definitely going to be something that affects dismissive avoidance maybe more than any other attachment style. If somebody they're looking to date or see as a potential romantic partner, they see moving very quickly in the intimacy aspect of life really early on. So that is really an important thing. And that means like when you sort of pull that back to the pillars of connection, that literally means like connect intellectually, then connect a little bit emotionally. Then as things start to progress, you can have these sort of romantic elements in there. And then when the time feels right and comfortable, that's when it's time to connect intimacy-wise. So you can sort of keep those things in mind. Number 3, you need to know your standards and vet them as well. And I had to put this into this video because so many people who learn about dismissive avoidance can easily end up walking on eggshells thinking I have to do everything right by the dismissive avoidant to win them over. But that's just people pleasing. And people pleasing ensures that you're actually not going to have an authentic connection with somebody long term. And so what this really means is that you need to be able to have a situation where you can connect with this individual in a way that is on your terms too. You need to know what you're looking for. You need to know your needs in a relationship. You need to know your non-negotiables and make sure there aren't any standing between you. And you have to ask the right questions to really vet to see if this person shows up and if they're a good fit for you also. Otherwise, this relationship and connection just simply won't last long term. This brings me to number 4, which is that then have to be able to communicate those needs to this individual. And I think sometimes when people hear, oh, communicate needs, they get a little bit afraid. They think that that means that you have to sit down with a checklist and say everything, and it's almost like a job interview. That's not the case. But when you're first dating somebody in those early months, you don't sit down on a first date and say, hey, here are my top 5 needs. Here are my non-negotiables. Where do you stand? No, you end up saying, hey, these are the things that are important to me. And you share what's important or what you're looking for, right? So you don't do it all at once. A really great standard or sort of pace to move at is to maybe share one important need per date. And that allows somebody to see you and hear you and understand who you are and what you're looking for and see if they rise to the occasion or not. So, for example, maybe on date number 2 or 3, you say to somebody, yeah, consistency around communication is definitely a big win for me. Like, I'm always looking for that because consistency matters and reliability is important to me. And so you say something like that, and that allows the person to rise to the occasion. If they decide that they're interested in you and they want to show up, then they know, okay, let me make a bit of an effort here to be more consistent and at least be mindful of that being an important thing to you because that's what, you're saying you're looking for. And ideally, they're sharing those things as well. So now you know how to take each other into consideration and build rapport. And, those are things that you want to be vetting for. Like when I share something important to me, do I see this person make a concerted effort? Do I see them step up to the plate? And I think that ideally, that's how we end up with knowing whether or not we're compatible with people. We have to be able to share these things that are meaningful to us and allow ourselves to see, does somebody show up for that? Now that they've shared those things with somebody, are they willing to make the effort, right? Because that's a huge part of doing relationships is we have to put our best foot forward and do things sometimes to compromise or move towards somebody. Now, before I tell you number 5, which is actually a really important one, I just want to let you know as well, if you want a whole roadmap to how the dismissive avoidance shows up in every stage of relationships and exactly all the pain points and challenging things and exactly how to navigate those things so they become so much easier and just like knowing all the ins and outs, you can actually check out that course fully for free for 14 days. Also, along with every other course at PDS, because it's a full 14-day membership that's free to the personal development school. And it allows you time to go in, download the course materials, take at least 1, if not 2 courses. And this is something we generally do about twice a year. And we're doing it right now for Mental Health Month, just for a limited time. So make sure you check the link below and you can get that course fully for free. Okay, number 5 is that you have to make sure that you are warm and, don't necessarily too early on pry very much. Dismissive avoidants want to know that you care to make them feel seen, care to understand them, care to get to know them and ask meaningful questions and don't operate too much on a superficial level. But at the same time, if you're prying, if you're constantly trying to get every little detail out about them, you feel like there's a wall up and you're poking, you're asking too many questions and pushing too fast, that will make them feel emotionally unsafe and they will tend to shut down and pull away and stonewall. So you want to be able to ask, meaningful questions. But again, stay away from it being like a job interview format. If you feel them sort of shutting off and not wanting to talk about something, respect that, right? That's somebody actually communicating that, hey, that doesn't feel comfortable yet. It's essentially a boundary for them. And so you want to make sure that you're hearing and seeing those things so that you can move the connection along in a way that works for both of your paces and really finding that middle ground. So we could go on further and further about this. Let me know if you want a second follow-up video about another 5 things, because we could seriously talk about all these ins and outs. But again, that course really outlines it in all the different stages more clearly than any YouTube video ever will, just because there's about an hour and a half of content and there's so much more time. So check that out. It's fully for free. And yeah, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching. I put daily videos out here if you're new to this channel. Just to make sure you always have a supportive resource there for you. So if you ever want to check it out, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the daily videos. You can hit that subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching.